in England. And the Malcolm X movement, in a nutshell, is a decolonial, anti-imperialist initiative. There's being in the heart of whiteness and being in the heart of one of the oldest, most bloodiest colonial entities known to humanity, that's England and the regime in London. It's not conducive to building radical black and Asian anti-imperialist initiatives, because there's a lot of co-option going on, there's a lot of internalization of oppression going on, etc. So it's a black and Asian-led initiative, and we have quote-unquote white comrades. And I think this is going to be an interesting theme throughout today, is the concept of racism and white supremacy and the contradictions and tensions within that. I don't need to tell you all, but some people say that the Irish were the first blacks in Europe. They were definitely the first to be colonized by English colonialism. But the concept of whiteness, as a very well-known radical anti-racist theorist called Stuart Hall said, is a floating signifier. Sometimes you're in the club of imperialism, and sometimes you're defined outside of that club. And the same people can be included inside to some extent and outside. And a very obvious and interesting example are Jewish people, who for most of their experience were outside the club of colonialism and Europeanness. And it's only very recently, and formally really until the formation of the white colonial settler project known as the State of Israel, that Jews to some extent, and not wholly, were included inside the club of whiteness and coloniality, etc. So that's something we're going to deal with when we're discussing Malcolm X, which this year is the 50th anniversary of his martyrdom. And Malcolm X, we consider, and I think a lot of people consider, such an important signature figure of radical politics on two main interconnected reasons. One, like yourselves, he raised the struggle of oppressed people from a civil rights struggle to a political and human rights liberation struggle within the confine of the so-called West. And secondly, and connected with that, he developed that struggle in unity with, and in some senses, being led by the actually existing global struggle against the same system of oppression. And that global struggle is posited during Malcolm's time, and I think it's very clearly still in our time. It's in the so-called Third World or Global South or the non-Western world. And so Malcolm's eloquence, his charisma, and more than that, the political analysis and the political combativeness that he brought to the struggle is what has meant that he's actually remained a real inspiring example. Recently, and a comrade who I met last time I was in Belfast said, why is the Malcolm X movement having the first event of the film festival, which are 7 events? Why is the first event here in Belfast? And it reminded me of what I quipped once on social media. I said the IRA are the best thing that Europe has ever produced, or the only good thing that Europe has ever produced is the IRA. And what I meant by that is that Europe as a concept, which is a colonial concept, all that it's given to the world is nothing but genocide, blood, looting, trauma, and murder for the last five centuries, half millennium. And one of the greatest things, standing ideologically and geopolitically from South Asia, where I was born, and Brother Hamza is here as well, and the Brits helped to partition our country and divide our families from each other in Punjab.
Thank you very much.
They're the masters of partition as well on the globe. From where we stood, our liberation struggle in undivided India in the 1920s was inspired primarily not only by the Russian Revolution, but by the example of 1916 and the struggle of the Irish people for independence against British colonialism. So from where we're standing, and that's the majority of humanity, because the majority of humanity are victims of the British system, from where we're standing, the Irish people in their pursuit of their own liberation were directly and indirectly inspiring and assisting humanity's liberation from coloniality, colonialism, and neo-colonialism. So that, I suppose, is the reason why we're here, is to salute the Irish people for their sacrifices of the last 8 centuries and ongoing, to reunify their country, from the colonialists and to develop a decolonial liberation project, which I think, with all the contradictions and all the complications and all the grumbling that goes on this island of Ireland, I think actually you're much further on that path than many other people are, definitely within the West. And how that relates to the Global South, I think that's a part of the conversation we're going to have. So today we have 3 panels. Thank you. We have 3 panels on 3 themes, and the 3 themes are going to be introduced by around approximately 15 minutes of Malcolm's own last speeches and interviews on that theme. So the first theme we have today is Malcolm X, Civil Rights and Black Power. And we're really honored to have one of the most inspiring examples, not only revolutionaries, but it has to be said when we're critiquing coloniality and the way it develops sexism, patriarchy and misogyny, a real inspiring figure in terms of the women's liberation kind of trend within our general liberation struggle as well. Someone you know better, much more than I do, but someone who really, I think, really needs to be popularized in terms of her work and her struggle. We have Comrade Bernadette McCalliskey, who's going to discuss after the first film clip. So if we don't mind, if the comrades in the booth can run the video of the Civil Rights and Black Power and switch off the lights, and then we'll go straight to Bernadette. Bernadette can make a contribution, then we can have a conversation together. Thank you.